Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. Today we're going to look at the comments behind the stories behind the headlines. Come visit with us as with the backing and interludes from local New Haven musicians. I'll read aloud some of the most interesting comments posted by readers of the New Haven Independent this week. To news stories in New Haven. It's been a busy week, folks. It's been interesting. Then I'll offer some comments with my colleague Harry Droz, the station manager here at WNHH. And thanks for listening. You're listening to the Afro-Semitic Experience in the background, playing Eliyahu Hanavi. We're going to keep playing. So, Harry, there are some stories here that aren't going to go for long conversations with lots of comments. They're not all going to be about the election, because so many other interesting things happened this week, from a teacher termination for throwing a stick of wood at a kid, to consultants being paid for a board education retreat, to a prayer vigil that actually ended up having a little controversy in our comments. So, but I do want to start with the election, which is going to be the most comments you'll hear me read today, okay? And just, I'll tell you what some people are saying. So, our very local take on the election was that, once again, our government botched the counting of ballots. It was just pandemonium for two separate reasons, which was one, election day registration. We get to sign up the same day and vote. They were way understaffed for it, despite warnings, despite the fact that it happened twice before, so it was 4-hour wait. And then people deputized en masse by raising their hands and saying I do that they're local voters to go through the process, which was very controversial. And just machines breaking like they did everywhere, but for some reason it was a bigger problem here, all through the nights, trying different ways to get different machines to hand count and giving up. And we still don't have the word-by-word breakdown. They're still tabulating that. Friday, they finally got the Secretary of State results that almost everybody else got Tuesday night, the rest Wednesday morning. So I want to read a bunch of comments from that. My first one is the favorite comment of the week. It's from 1644. He's my favorite commenter. His politics are like yours, Harry. But he points out a lot of great stuff in this site. So at the end of this week, Harry, when we were writing about all these stories, staying up all night, kind of having fun, racing around about the botched election, on the week's end, I tied it together with an article about everything that went wrong and what ideas people have to fix it. Racing to put everything together, just like people racing to count ballots. I went home, and it was about to be Sabbath, and I had an hour to cook, and I see this comment from 1644. This article is riddled with typographical errors. I suspect the author is as sleep-deprived as the people who counted these ballots. I suspect those counts like this article contain many unintentional errors. Frankly, I wish everyone involved had just gotten 24 hours rest before trying to finish the count. Litigator or not, no one thinks well when sleep-deprived. It's why we require pilots and truck drivers to get a certain amount of rest. What do you think of that comment? Oh, I don't know why I don't got you on your number two.
Number two.
There you go.
Got me. All right. So I think the guy's probably right? Because first off, nobody was sleeping here, right?
Right.
During the election.
Right.
And
I would go home and get 4 hours and then write another story, get another 4 hours. Up to 5:30 that morning after being up late. Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys were literally going like the Energizer Bunny.
Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, sure, we all need to kind of pull back a little bit and then try to come at it with fresh eyes all over again. But I get his frustration. I mean, I guess we got to look at it as, at least we're not Florida, right?
Well, I loved a lot of things about his comments. I mean, there's a separate question of why don't we just have enough people to count the ballots and have them trained well and have a machine in good shape so it doesn't have to happen. A couple things I loved about it is that readers really help us do our job better. So we actually had more proofreading on that story than usual because I knew we were tired. And then when he said that, I raced back before I had finished cooking for Sabbath to see that there were some huge typos that made it impossible to understand part of the story. There was a reader who wrote in about his experience as a poll checker, and I quoted that. And then I forgot when I was cutting and pasting to put the beginning telling you that you were reading this from a poll checker. It made no sense.
Oh, okay.
So it was so valuable that reader helped us do our job to keep watch on us. And then in the same point, make a humorous and very important point, which I agree with him about, that I don't think in New Haven, I don't think in Ansonia with the Cabrera-Logan race, state Senate race that kept changing back when absentee ballots were voting wrong, in Florida, in Georgia, I actually don't believe that everybody's vote is counting as one vote this election. In Ansonia, 2 votes counted as 200, but it's usually the other way. I was watching people, Harry, at 2 in the morning at Edgewood School trying to call off the results and write them by hand. And the registrar was saying, States Senate, Gary. And then all these people write down Gary, and it's like, well, it's Gary Winfield, you know. And it was just on some piece of paper with scrawls. I mean, there is just no way that these vote counts are accurate. And I think one person, one vote is the sort of foundation of democracy.
Well, I don't know. Right now, you know, I get worried about the wording and the arguments of every vote must count, you know, basically bypassing the fact that every legal vote should count. Not every vote, because a lot of people get outperformed after the election, right? That's what it seems like in all of these states. You have votes being found. You know, yesterday they found, I think, 10,000 votes in an Avis car in Florida.
Wasn't that the one where it turned out to be pens and papers and the codes? I think that was a urban myth.
Is it?
Yeah, they released that. But it does happen. In Bridgeport in 2010, they went into a back room and they'd forgotten about a whole bag of ballots. And that election was so close to call. Those ballots were part of the...
Right, and we have that in Florida, too, where they found them in cafeterias and break rooms.
The question is, you know, are they doing that on purpose? Like, often, I think it's often incompetence, but we know that sometimes, at least in the past, it's been on purpose.
Well, that's the thing. I
don't
feel... Well, when you have a history of it, like Florida,
yeah,
I think it's done on purpose.
Okay, so Dr. J wrote about this. Every registrar of voters is paid $60,000, the elected registrars. We can find better qualified people to do this job for that pay. Let's amend the charter to make this an appointed position so we can fire someone who's incompetent. Why do we elect our registrars of voters? And people don't know we elect them, so they never get... And get this.
Can they be fired?
I don't know if there's a recall profession or not. It's like elected officials. They don't answer the mayor. They answer the Secretary of State. But here's the thing, Harry. We have a Democrat and a Republican registrar. In New Haven, they no longer work together. They used to work together very well. But if a third party runs and wins, as happened in Hartford a bunch of years ago with the Working Families Party, the Democrat and Republican by law still get in. So then you have three. The taxpayers are paying for three. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Some of this stuff needs to be...
Dr. J is on the money. Let's see if Jim 425 is on the money. As a ward moderator, I had firsthand experience on Tuesday. While I agree with many of the facts mentioned in the article, I would like to make a few corrections. 1. The tabulators, machines to feed ballots into, were delivered to each polling place along with the other election day supplies prior to election day. Did not have to be returned to the register. Okay. 2. The staff of the registrar's office was incredibly helpful, because our point was that a lot of people couldn't get through to them because they didn't have enough people and the lines were jammed. The reason for the polling places, different in odd even years, boils down to automatic redistricting after the 2010 census. Alders want to protect their turf from a warned or possible outcome. This does not excuse the registrar's office sending out the wrong information. What that's about, Harry? People got notices to vote in the wrong place. Because every 2 years in New Haven, a lot of people have to keep changing where they vote, and here's why. They're in a ward, right? Ward is your local election, alder, all that stuff. So you go in your neighborhood polling place. And we have 30 wards, which is a lot. When they redistricted, they didn't have those wards fit neatly with where state representative and state senate districts are. So sometimes in the same polling place, they'll have it divided for different...
It's continuous gerrymandering,
right? So people going to the same polling place, your neighbor from across the street, one of you votes in for the 10th Senate District, one votes in the 11th. Then for Alder, on some years you go to your neighbor place for Alder, but even number of years is for state elections, except registered voter. And in those years, because the districts are drawn so funny that don't have to do a neighbor, you have to go somewhere else, and the registrar kept telling you go to the wrong places. So he is saying, or Jim, that we should have those districts line up, and when we draw districts, because I know that we've covered the redistricting process. People want to make sure they're still in the district, or someone who's against them is not, or the incumbents get protected. And we know, like, Rose DeLaura puts a little bit of Middletown in her district. I think maybe even a little bit of Waterbury to get those urban votes.
There's an app for that now to tell you where you're supposed to be voting. So,
But some of that information even sometimes gets wrong. And then you get there, the signs. Yeah, there is an app. It should be people who are computer savvy. Oh, here's another thing Jim 425 said. The city should not be responsible for a vast EDR system. That's election day registration. You sign up last minute. The mandate comes from the state, and the state should pick up the tab for this process. What do you think? So we didn't have enough people working there. Other cities, except for one, Mansfield, get enough people. The Secretary of State and the mayor told us to get enough people. They eventually got some Yale law students to volunteer at the end of the day and finally had enough people so you didn't have to wait 4 hours. But what about this? Do you think...
I think it should be a state-run thing, so they should pay.
Well, Noteworthy says same-day registration should end up the night before an election. If people are too lazy, uninformed, or disengaged, waiting till the last minute to register so they can follow the herd mentality, it's not our responsibility to handle. You have to have an ID to get in a federal building. Some commercial buildings. You have to get to the train on time and the airport on time. Nobody says, oh, sorry, you showed up late and you're stuck in the TSA line, so we'll just hold the plane. Screw that, people. This was done so the Democrats didn't have to find registered voters to drag out the vote. They just had to grab people at a pulse. This is not democracy. And let me give you SB's the other view when you want to weigh in. The correct solution is to move in the opposite direction of Noteworthy's voter suppression schemes. Unless the state, like many European nations, is going to issue IDs for everyone to every resident for free with, yes, a pulse. An ID requirement is a poll tax intended to prevent the poor from voting. Compare voting to flying commercial is outrageous. One is a right and the other a privilege. We need a modern voting system, some combination of vote by mail and early voting. Ending registration before Tuesday is fine if you can early vote at the same time you register. These systems are used elsewhere with no problem. Our system? Huge problem. And finally, 1644. SB. Connecticut charges only $8 for a state identification card. Changing that amount to $0 would not be too costly, so the poll tax is eliminated. The U.S. and U.K. are two of the few advanced countries without national identification cards. We require identification more to purchase a firearm, also a constitutional right. Requiring identification and pre-registration shouldn't be a problem for Connecticut's legal residents. We've been living without early voting for nearly 400 years. In some towns, one still needs to show up at a meeting to vote. We know when the elections are. It's not hard to register in advance. You can even do it online. Where do you stand on all that, Harry?
Wow. That was a lot. I agree with everybody.
I do too.
You know, so
I do too.
I'll take a little bit
even when they disagree.
Right, even when they disagree. Now, I think there should be same-day registration, you know, because nobody should be able to take your right away to vote. And I do think that a lot of these... Now, who was it? 14... Who said that it runs perfect in other states? These mail-in stuff.
Yeah. SB.
They don't run perfect, right? You have signature match problems and all of that. So you end up with the same problems with these mail-in. I don't like mail-in stuff. I prefer somebody to actually have to brandish
I'm actually with you.
an ID. But
I don't know about the ID, but you're
ID. I agree with that part. Where
I guess you have to bring like something that's like a letter from your house.
Say you go to the Democratic Convention, you can't get in without your ID.
Yeah, I think you can bring a letter like utility bill or something.
You know, so you should be able to have to prove you're an American citizen.
What about the where someplace like, you know, my heart is with the people like SB and Denise Merrill, so let's make it so easy to vote because I want everyone to be able to vote.
Right.
And I hate voter suppression when they move, you know, they close the polling places near black people, make them drive for 2 hours. That's actually sick. But, you know, I'm a little skeptical like you about the mail-in voting and the overboard and early voting because it's not that I think you should have to pay and make it hard to vote, but there's such opportunities for fraud with mail-in. And we've even found that some of the computerized stuff is good, but some of it we almost did in New Haven. Thank God we didn't because other states got hacked from using the systems. We still need the paper ballots. And I want to find a way to have no suppression, but still, you know, maybe have election day off. Make it easy to vote, but not...
That would be great.
Not have to have this, like, election day rush, unless it's an emergency, like, unless they made a mistake.
Because I was on the line to vote, and there were a few people, you hear the conversation, and you hear people talking about, I'm going to have to come back and vote after I come out of work. That's just not right, you know? So you get up early, and because there's a line, now you have to go to make work to then come back and hopefully there's not a huge...
So there's a genuine problem, especially for hourly wage workers with weird schedules, and they also have kids to run to get to. You actually physically can't if the lines are long. And then that's an argument for early voting.
And then what you said about moving the the polling places, it's true. I mean, mine's got moved up a hill. Now, I have a car, so I could go vote.
And you go to a different one the next year?
Well... No, this one got changed This one got changed last year for 2016.
But permanently, or is it changed? Because
Well, I'm not sure if they're going to move it
it's
again.
not a bad idea. It's not the end of the world if they move it. The question was whether you vote different places on odd and even years because they gerrymandered state and local districts. That was that issue.
I don't know if that's the reason, but they moved us up a hill in a nice white area, which is fine. which is fine with me. I don't mind.
There, even though it was a nice
I don't
area.
mind because I could drive up there, but I know there's people who don't have cars.
Yeah.
Who are gonna have to take the
so
bus
it sounds
if
like they don't want poor people to vote in Waterbury?
No. Well, that district where I'm in the Bunker Hill area, but so they moved it up higher up the hill. That's what they did.
Maybe they want people to get exercise.
Yeah, it was already in the middle of the hill. They didn't move it that far away, but if you're walking, it's Waterbury Mountains get to you.
Waterbury Mountains. Well, you know what, Harry? Let's take a quick break here on Dateline New Haven, where we're doing commenting on the comments about news stories in the Independent, what readers had to say about it, what Harry Jost and I have to say about what the readers had to say about it. Backed by local music. You've been listening to the Afro-Semitic Experience. Now we're going to listen to Goodnight Moonshine, a great local band with Molly Venter in it. And we're going to listen to their song True North from their album I'm the Only One Who Will Tell You You're Bad.
When I left my father's house, I was well supplied. I made mistakes and I done wrong. Now I'm dissatisfied. I'll go back to my father's house, fall down on my face, say I am unworthy, I seek a servant's place. I believe I'll go back home. I believe I'll go back home. I believe I'll go back home. Acknowledge I've done wrong. I'll go back to my father's house, the place I hold so dear. There I will have plenty to eat, I am a starving here. Father's seen him coming and met him with a smile, threw his arms around his neck, saying, "This is my wandering child. I believe I'll go back home. I believe I'll go back home. I believe I'll go back home. Acknowledge I've done wrong." Father said to his servants, "Go kill a fatted calf, invite both friends and relatives. My son's come home at last."
Harry, I'm not sure about that song. That doesn't sound like True North by Goodnight Moonshine. It sounds like Stacey Phillips.
I believe I heard him say.
Are we back?
Yeah. Well, we had the wrong CD in the wrong jacket. That was Stacey Phillips. The late Stacey Phillips died this year doing an old biblical song about some of the characters in the Bible, and we're talking about biblical issues and real life issues in New Haven on Dateline New Haven,
You know, I was thinking about the ID issue. I think it should be free, right? Because you can't even get any government service without having ID. So
yeah.
how would the people who are dependent on the government, how would they be able to get any service? That's why everybody should have ID right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody out there without ID, you have to actually wonder why.
Mm-hmm. Okay, some of us would fantasize about living off the grid. But I was talking about biblical and faith. On the green this weekend, on Sunday afternoon, the mayor and a whole lot of preachers showed up on the green, crowd of 150. They even found a random Jew to rope in. They found someone, a Baha'i, a Hindu. I don't think they're Hindu. They had an imam, a whole lot of preachers, Christian preachers. And they had a prayer event. They said it's so divisive in this country now. We just finished an election season where there's a lot of hate, a lot of anger, a lot of division. We just had a bunch of terrible incidents in our country with mass slaughters of guns. And let's have a prayer for peace for our community. And I have to admit, Harry, as an editor, I feel terrible saying anything bad about it because what could be wrong with that, right? And it's sincere. I wasn't excited about it. I sent a reporter. I said, let's just find, because, prayers tend to be a little anodyne. Just find a few good sentences to take out. Let's cobble together one prayer out of it. And, I hate to be nasty about someone wanting to do good rather than, I'm a little, even though I pray every morning and I pray every evening, almost every evening, prayed this morning, and I believe in prayer, I sometimes think it rings hollow in any kind of political setting. But in any case, I love the comment. We wrote about it. We gave it its due, and with sincerity, because we want to help people get the word out, even if it's not our word. But there were some great comments in the God story that came out. So Maria Hermosillo of the New Haven Baha'i community, even found a Baha'i. It's like Tom Lehrer's National Brotherhood Week. She said in her prayer, there's only one God, whether you call him Allah, Muhammad, or Jehovah. It's all the same God. And we believe in all the religions, all divine messengers, so that for us, Christian, Jewish, Muslim is all part of our faith. Except for the he part, I take exception to. Okay, that's trying to unify by saying we're all monotheistic religions. Of course, 1644, one of our great commenters, he came right on the story soon after it published. He quoted them saying, there's only one God, whether you call him Allah, Muhammad, or Jehovah, it's the same God. Then he asks, are Hindus monotheistic? No. If we proclaim the universality of of one God, are we not excluding the polytheists in our community? What do you think, Harry?
That makes sense, right? It just makes too much sense. So,
but it gets to something deeper, as this comments usually do with humor.
Right.
Can you have unity when there are some fundamental differences? I believe you can, right? So are people like 1644 and Paul in private being not good sports and just trying to throw darts when people are trying to come together with such great motives, and it is sincere, and we are, I do believe that, I don't believe that one religion is truer than the other. I'm a religious Jew, and I don't think my religion's better or truer than a Christian or a Muslim or a Baha'i. So in that sense, I really do agree with the sentiment of that statement. But it is an interesting point 1644 raises. When you're trying to do these unity rallies, do you paper over stuff? Or do you even say things that no matter how hard you try, you're going to insult somebody? So is the...
Well, I think,
is silence better, just holding hands?
Well, his point is the point. Trying to basically throw it back in the faces of everybody who's sensitive to everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to be sensitive and try to say unity, you can't exclude.
And yet we have to respect,
right?
You guys do have fun making fun of everyone's trying to be sensitive, and then, but I understand it could be overdone for sure and get stupid.
But religion is always overdone, and you say it's sincere. I find it skeptical when any politician tries to.
Yeah, there's a lot of insincerity in religion. Mixing politics and religion is a lethal brew.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on that one.
And I find nothing sincere about it.
Wow.
I find it patronizing, basically, to the people, because
I like when there's music to bring people together across faith. I remember after some kind of religious
music
problems
is
years
great
ago,
to bring us all together.
Afro-American Experience did this great concert, I forget, after one of the tragedies in Patel Chapel. But even there are some Orthodox Jews who will not be present in a room when a woman's voice is heard, which I find insulting.
See, that's the interesting thing, right? And that's why I find it all hypocritical and everything, because at the basis of everybody's religion. I know you just said you don't find your religion to be better or anything.
Except for me.
But that's you, right?
Right. And my people.
Well, that's you, Paul. What you find at the basis of every religion is that these people are true believers. And if you're a true believer of your religion, then you have to basically exclude the other religion.
Right, that's one of the challenges of religion. If tribalism and religion is a way of defining yourself as opposed to other people, it can be used still to be a sense of ground yourself of who you are and what community you're in, and then use that to embrace other people who are different and be part of a larger world.
All right.
Or it could be used to exclude to feel superior. So I think religion, like politics, like any kind of tribalism, can be used for good or bad.
Well, yeah, tapping into the spirit of community with every religion. That's me, Paul. That's my phone. That's my phone.
I say. Yeah. So then
tapping into the community portion of it, because every religion has that community, right? But the reason they reach out to that community is to convert that community. Right? Most.
In Judaism, you're supposed to try to discourage people from converting.
Most.
And right now, I have a problem with luring people to convert. And again, I think it's too easy, Harry, to say something you and I both agree with that you just said, that often religion is used to exclude and feel better than other people and tighten up your group against others. Because while that's true, it doesn't mean it has to be true. And if you really believe in humanity and universalism and you know, you can have two ideas at once, which is that you come from a distinct group with a brief set of values and one distinct centuries-old way of trying to find meaning to life and a way to live, without to have that strength in your own identity so that you can get along with other people and not feel superior and try to subjugate them or fight. That's harder, but I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, I think it is also, but it's just so confusing. That's why I don't even like to even let religion and politics have a touch in a conversation.
I agree. Came up at our show on Saturday, and I felt like I had to respond to something. I did say I hate to bring up religion, and because I think you go to church, you go to synagogue, go to mosque, you should feel comfortable no matter what your views are on President Trump or supply side economics or voting procedures. You know, there's something deeper that when we have opinions on those subjects, because we have larger values that we can find common ground on. But
right,
you're often hypocritical in practice when you start throwing religion.
There's plenty for us to have common ground in, right? Yeah. Religion should always be put on the back burner when it comes to, this is funny, but when it comes to society, right? Society as a whole, and look.
But religion's sometimes the most animating force in communities.
It is
in society,
kind of.
And it is a form of society, and a building block of society,
right? But behind every war and everything, you'll find religion.
You will, and also this whole interfaith, which is such a great impulse, is often such BS in the end. You know. Anyway, even though I love it and I love people, you know, the stronger I am Jewish, the more I appreciate people from other religions. But anyway, my second favorite part of this comment thread was Spark James wrote at 10:39 a.m. on November 12th. I would like to hear from 3/5. He's one of our favorite commenters. And I was thinking, I would too. So 3/5 needed only 11 minutes to respond. Here's what 3/5 wrote. 3/5 wrote, I will let this speak for me. Quote. He had two quotes. The first is from Zora Neale Hurston. Dust tracks on a road. Quote, so I do not pray. I accept the means at my disposal for working out my destiny. It seems to me that I have been given a mind and willpower for that very purpose. Prayer seems to me a cry of weakness and an attempt to avoid by trickery the rules of the game. As laid down, I do not choose to admit weakness. The reason I don't agree with her, Harry, is it could be a source of strength because she's saying she was given willpower in mind. That's a fundamental tenet of Judaism. You are given freedom of choice, which is somewhat of a contradiction if there's a great creator who kind of set it all up. We don't think of most of us as like some character or some guy, some creator. But there is that contradiction at the heart of religion. There are forces greater than us, which of course there are, that we don't understand, that have set up this whole game and who we are and how we live. So, but we also have free choice, we think. We can choose to do the right thing, we choose the wrong thing, everything, which actually to me distills the positive power of religion. And what I find in prayer, unlike Zora Neale Hurston, which isn't to say change it and I'll not take responsibility, but remind myself through prayer that there is right and wrong, and I'm going to try my best not to be a schmuck as much as I can during the day.
See, I kind of agree with, who is it?
Zora Neale Hurston.
No. The one who commented.
Yeah, she's the quote that 3/5 was quoting.
Okay, 3/5. So here's the thing, right? I'm not a religious person myself. I actually encourage people who are religious to actually follow their teachings if those teachings are of love, right?
But you're not going to like this because all those Christian people who are on your side of the conservative politics, they'd all become socialists if they followed Jesus.
Well,
with a work ethic.
That's not so, because Jesus actually separated religion and politics, right?
But the underlying values.
But here's the thing. I'm not a religious person, but I do understand science, right? I do understand science, and I understand that the particles in space exist in all of us here on Earth, right? And we're all connected by those same particles. And that seems spiritual in a way, right? So we're all connected by something. So although I'm not religious, I feel spiritually connected to everyone. And I think everyone should.
Preach it, Harry Droz. The Reverend Harry Droz, joining us on Dateline New Haven to talk about the comments the commenters posted the New Haven Independent about news, all that news this week. You've been listening to some preaching too from Stacey Phillips and friends in the background. And now we're going to take a musical interlude before we get back to more comments. This is from Suburban. That's Charlie Widmer. You know him. He's this incredibly talented guy. Does both opera and hip-hop stuff with his brother Fred F1 Widmer. From their album, Suburban Everybody Knows, we're going to listen to the song, If You Wanna Fly.
Yeah. If you wanna fly. If you wanna fly. Yeah. Oh, to fly high above the trees. Being in the plane to me is just a tease. The calm of the clouds, the feel of the breeze. Life from up here just seems at ease. And any location could be our destination. No long travel or endless waiting. Down there there's hate, down there there's panic. And even though they try to explain, I'll never understand it. So just keep your eyes fixed on the horizon. Before you said to land, now you're saying to fly. The slingshot, no strings, only thing you got is my shoulder. You're down in hesitation, weighing down like boulders. Don't worry, we gon' get there. I told you, so just keep your eyes shut and hold on till it's over. So I spend every night with my eyes shut tight, praying that maybe one day I too could take flight. If you wanna fly with me, keep an open mind and ski. Open up your eyes and see. If you wanna fly with me. One night at my window sat a strange man. I asked his name and he told me he was Peter Pan. He started telling me about this place called Neverland, where you never age. And every day is a blank page, everything's an adventure. Oh, he said, I forgot to mention, I know that you will come, and please allow me to tell you why. If you choose to come with me, then I will teach you how to fly. I was so fucking excited I wanted to cry, but he disappeared and reemerged out of the corner of my eye, handed me a contract and a pen, told me to read and take my time and to sign on that dotted line. I said, nah man, I'm not trying to be famous. I'd rather be with my family and all remain nameless. Because to me, this is the definition of flying. What he was doing was selling dreams and just lying. If you wanna fly with me, keep an open mind and ski. Open up your eyes and see. If you wanna fly with me, if you wanna fly with me.
That's Suburban, great local band on the move, on the rise. Charlie Widmer, his brother Fred F1 Widmer, and the crew doing If You Want to Fly here on WNHH FM. Your home for community radio, 103.5 live stream at newhavenindependent.org. I'm Paul Bass here on Dateline. We're joined by Harry Drost, my colleague, WNHH station manager. We're reading some of the best comments that New Haven Independent readers have posted to stories this week about what's going on in our community and talking about those comments as local musicians like Suburban serenade us in the background. Harry, there was a story this morning Chris Peak did. I really like this story, even though it's not a lot of money. But it touches on a fact that involves a lot of money, which is that the Board of Education is having another retreat so they can figure out how to get along and do stuff. Now, they used to fight like dogs ever since they became partly elected. We started not just having to be mayorally appointed. So we used to have the mayor appointed the Board of Ed. Board of Ed didn't really review anything. They just did what the mayor wanted, gave the contracts so they wanted it done. They ran the school system. Now, because of a power struggle involving some unions that are legitimately strengthening the legislative branch and wanting to have more accountability, or some could argue checks on power for other groups, they have a partly elected school board now.
But do you think Stefano ran it better with an iron? No, he didn't.
No, because the schools were terrible under Stefano. It was so bad he had to stake his whole last 6 years on making the schools better through a dramatic change. But I don't know if the process is the issue or what kind of people you appoint. That's going on now with the Civilian Review Board. They want to create one, but doesn't have subpoena power under law to check police misconduct. But we have a police commission that's appointed by the mayor that never watches over, but did back in 1977 because the mayor was at odds with the police chief, and they actually did a great investigation with subpoena power. So a lot of tough questions in terms of how do you decide whether it's structure that you change or what kind of people are appointed, just hold the people you've already elected accountable. But that's going off the rails. What happened is that this morning, Chris reported they're going to do another retreat. They're getting along better, but they're still fights. They want to work well. They're paying a company $15,000 to set up their retreat for them, which probably isn't a lot based on consultants' costs. We don't get me off on consultants. Okay. But
it isn't that bad. That's
right. It's a low price.
That's pretty good.
But they now have an $8.89 million deficit in the school board that's actually grown since they started cutting it. So Patricia Kane said if the school board and the superintendent want to improve their working relationship to the point where they can use their own expertise to design a retreat, I suggest they use community mediation services. That's a nonprofit in town. They probably want to charge more. I don't know if it'll be less or not. The ongoing use of outside consultants for Superintendent Burks' debut in our retreat undermines the appearance of competency. Now, Noteworthy, who comes from your political side, was just mad at everything all the time, but he has some very interesting points. And the band played on notes. He noted that the deficit has grown since the last report, and that it was predicted to be 8.4 million. Now it's 8.9 million. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, the spending continues. New consultants are hired, and the schools get whacked, and money gets reallocated. So thinks it's not good. And average taxpayer says MICKEY MOUSC. There was no music in his remark, but I think that's part of it. What do you think? So you think it's okay to spend $15K? It's not a lot for a consultant, and you can make better spending decisions. They would argue that $15K gets you far if you could function well as a board and make better decisions.
Well, if it would actually work, but this isn't the first retreat, won't be the last retreat.
First one we went to was funny. They were like the one student rep who was always the grown up in the room. She started crying. Everyone was still being so mean to each other.
See, the thing is that nobody has faith in government anymore, especially because you see them, make these declarations of, oh, this is how to fix it, and all it does is cost more money. Nothing ever gets fixed. People still hate each other. That's the biggest problem, right? Dealing with all the people. Yeah. It's so hard. The Board of Education has been screwed up for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't think a retreat is gonna fix it, but I wouldn't say not do it, because who knows? Some people it may help some people.
I'm saying get a volunteer who's good at this, at just facilitating a meeting. So I can't stand facilitation because you have the dry erase boards. You just write all these words on there. But why don't you do it for free? We have palaces in our schools, beautiful buildings. They're empty at certain times, Why in the world do you need to go rent space, some expensive conference room somewhere? They say, well, to get off the ground so you're in an unfamiliar space. They haven't been inside every school.
Oh, and
If they have, they don't know every inch they can talk there.
even if they have, I don't. It really doesn't. You could transport them to the moon. It's not gonna help. Just not gonna help.
Well, someone's got to fight this war. At least that's what Steve Mennick says. He's a local musician, you know. And he has a lot of albums out that we play that you like. This, I do too. It's called The Ceremony of Innocence. We'll be right back at Dateline New Haven and talk about more comments and commenters after we hear Steve Mennick with Someone Needs to Fight This War Without Consultants.
Someone needs to fight this war, or just kiss the future goodbye. Crank up the volume, turn on the light, take away the shadows where they hide. Someone needs to fight this war, need to send them to the rings of hell. Speak your mind in a serious way, bang the drums and ring all the bells. We need clean water, we need to breathe clean air. The heat is rising, tornadoes everywhere. Ozone depleting, CO2 down the atmosphere. The sea is rising daily, the ice is melting in the air. Someone needs to fight this war, or soon will be extinct. Storm the halls, climb the barricades, do anything to make them think. Someone needs to fight this war.
How you
All
doing?
we need is a little truth. Mindless tantrums on the radio will sink this country, and that is sure. We need clean water, we need to breathe clean air. The heat is rising, tornadoes everywhere. Ozone depleting, CO2 down the atmosphere. The sea is rising daily, the ice is melting in the air.
We need clean water. We need to breathe the air. What do you think, Harry?
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Steve Mendick is singing there, and someone's got to fight this war. We need clean water. We need to breathe the air. You with Steve on that one?
I'm with him. I know you're gonna say something about the EPA, but
Nope, because we're doing something else. We're in
okay.
Dateline New Haven, and we're looking at comments people have posted, the local news stories. And Harry Drow, station manager here, are gonna help me run it down. Thank you. So, Harry, there was a teacher termination. The school board, the superintendent of schools fired a teacher across. He threw a stick that was the size of a pencil at a kid and hit him.
so he threw a pencil.
Yeah, and she terminated him, fired him, But the school board met and said, nah, you can't fire him. It's ridiculous. So they suspended him for 3 days without pay and ordered him to attend a classroom management training and to pen a written apology to the student. Not all our greeters agreed with the original suspension.
So,
the original termination. Let me see what they wrote, and then we'll comment. 1644 again. Boy, he comes up a lot. My 6th grade social studies teacher had a great pickoff move. He'd be writing on the blackboard, back to the class, then suddenly turn and hit Ricky L in the head with the eraser to shut Ricky up. Sometimes other students, if they were talking, but mostly it was Ricky. We were always amused, including Ricky. Another teacher observed Ricky just wanted attention. The question is, did that give him the attention he wanted? And that encouraged him? What happened to Ricky today? Kind of interesting. NH Native wrote, how silly. When I was in high school, my Spanish teacher used to throw chalk at us when we misbehaved. It got our attention and we loved him for it. Observer 1. The stated offense in itself would not be a concern if it was a one-time thing. After reading the complete article, some of the commenters do that, I see a pattern of less than appropriate behavior over time. I also see anger management type problems. I would have sustained this termination. Carl Goldfield points in. I would like to offer a more nuanced response to the survey. Throwing a pencil-sized wooden object at a student should not be a termination event unless, of course, it takes out an eye. Well, that means it all depends on, fate. However, throwing an anvil at a student would, in my opinion,
that's a problem.
Justify termination. TFA 2013 writes, anyone who has worked in New Haven Public Schools knows it is much easier to suspend an adult staff member than a student. I know of teachers who have been physically assaulted by students. And the principal's response is that the superintendent does not want kids suspended because it hurts her data! Exclamation point. Principals are desperate to keep these students in school, many times at the expense of other students' learning and the teacher's well-being. Finally, Alice B., who I think has never liked an article that ever appeared in the New Haven Independent, but yet reads it in comments. Thank you for your comments, Alice. Mr. Coburn's, that's the name of the teacher. Students love him. I just want to thank the Board of Ed for showing great wisdom in this decision. All teachers know we are one bad day away from being escorted out of the building, yet we soldier on. Because we know on our good days, we connect with and guide our students in a positive direction. So we hit them with the anvil one day, teach them math the other. Mr. Coburn is a wonderful educator. When I informed the students he would be coming back, they were so happy. Again, thank you to the board. I wish others had your discernment. One more from CTDDW. New Haven school system is notorious for blaming teachers for misbehaving kids. The teacher will be the one punished. Apparently, though, wrestling a child to the ground is not grounds for employee dismissal. When a family member is on the board, ooh, that employee is just given time off and then moved to a different school. They are foolish enough to think these actions go unnoticed. What do you think? Is there a little bit of an old fart phenomenon with people our age? When we were in school, we spanked the kids. We hit them with the roller, and they all came out okay.
I wouldn't do that because I know. I had a teacher, Mr. Taylor. He was vice principal and the science teacher, and he would every time you disrupted his class, he had a roll of rolled up magazines. And he would hit you on the back of the head, and you would be seeing stars for a couple of seconds, right? But you would straighten right up and not disturb the class anymore, right? So back then it wasn't seen as anything wrong, but I think about it, and if somebody was doing that to my child or my granddaughter, I would have a problem with it.
See, there's the issue. So there's a lot of people who say in the old days at work to spank kids. I just read a study yesterday, and I'm sure not saying it never helps to take violence to a kid, but it was seen, okay, my dad hit me once, and he should have. I kind of feel like once only. He was not a violent at all person, and didn't really hit me hard. But a lot of people feel like we really did discipline that way, and they knew who was in charge, and it made you follow rules and respect authority. Other people say violence is not a way to solve problems. It just gets you the wrong lesson about what authority is and how you should deal with it, deal with problems. Do you think partly it's just times change, mores change? What used to be okay isn't now. You do have to be more careful about stuff today. And, the right says, oh, that's over careful and we can't just be human.
But you have to be more careful. First off, I don't think kids are made like they used to be made. Yeah. Right? They're not as tough or anything because you see everybody so fragile these days. Everything hurts them. Yeah. But I don't ever think that, was the teacher throwing the stick with malicious intent?
I'm guessing the
Or
kid
was he
pissed-
trying to get his attention?
I'm,
Hey,
I'm guessing the kid pissed him off.
right, but was it in a malicious way to take his eye out, or was it like just sit down? You know, like then I don't see a problem with it. You know, if you're not trying to actually harm the person. You're trying to get his attention. Hey, listen, have some respect in my classroom. It's totally different than getting hit.
But you're saying, Harry, and this surprised me. If this was thrown at your kid, you wouldn't think it was okay.
This would be fine with me. If as long as it's not malicious intent, then I would think it's fine.
So
he's trying to get your attention. Why did he need your attention would be my question
That's
to
a
my
good question.
child.
But another question is like impulse control in the teacher. And if there are other incidents, if that's the way the teacher, because it is hard being a teacher. I don't want to downplay that. I would not be a good teacher with kids who act out.
And there's plenty of videos online of teachers who get attacked and the kids get away with it.
But is that the way to deal with it, to throw things at people? I think that's a bad lesson for the kids, Harry.
It's probably a bad lesson for the kids.
So I definitely would have given this anger management training. I don't know if the guy's going to take it seriously or not.
Right. I wouldn't have fired him. Maybe the 3-day suspension is fine.
Yeah.
But you can't escape the fact that in your past they were a lot worse.
No question.
You know what I'm saying? So
you see, the best way a teacher
nothing...
dealt with me in Miss Liana in 11th grade, first period class, I was so tired. I loved her, but I was so tired in English class. I sometimes put my head in my arms and almost fall asleep. And one day I came in and she said, Paul, I'd like you to go in front of the class and tell us about the assignment. So I did. And she sat in my class, and then in a very ostentatious way, she folded her hands on the desk and put her head in there and said, now you know how it feels. I thought that was a more effective way of dealing with the problem than throwing an eraser at my head and said, wake up. Although maybe it would have worked to say eraser. What do you think?
I've been thrown with the eraser before too. But but you see, I was the child who was disruptive for no reason, just to be disrespectful. So I don't see, as long as the person's not trying to harm you. They were always trying to get my attention when they threw out the eraser. It wasn't like they were throwing a 99-mile-an-hour fastball with a baseball. It was a soft eraser. Now my science teacher, I loved Mr. Taylor, but my bell got rung plenty of times by him.
Well, Harry, I see a comment there. And Harry, thanks for joining me today, and thanks, listeners, for joining me and going over comments in the event. We didn't get to all of them, but that's okay, because I liked how we talked about them. It was fun, and I liked the local musicians we heard from, including Afro-Semitic Experience, which is queuing up in the background. You've been listening to Dateline New Haven, your home for community radio. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we are going to, so the comment thread, I think, whether it was the prayers on the green or Mr. Coburn throwing the stick at the kid, or the election problems, is a plea for peace.
Or maybe we'll do one with all of the comments that we erase, that we've tracked down.
Right. Stay tuned. Well, we are going to take out the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. It's been alleged that we all know what it's like to be free. We just got to remember to book our flight. Fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.